All right. Sergio, good to catch up with you. And we're going to test this out. We're going to test to see how the recording stuff goes. As I was just saying, I'm kind of new to the whole YouTube thing or, even having whatever like show or podcast or anything. So this is sort of like anti-show. It's more just like conversation. And yeah, so, really curious I don't even know where in the world you are right now. So are you in
I'm
Venezuela
in
or
Venezuela. I'm
you're in?
Venezuela. Yeah, yeah. I came back. I told you about ayacas and stuff,
Mhm.
and then actually I'm flying tomorrow to Buenos Aires for
Oh,
the event. Yeah.
oh, awesome. That is really
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah, and that was a really beautiful, beautiful. I don't know if you believe in destiny, but it was a really beautiful coincidence because I had this flight like booked since December,
Okay.
and then when I saw that Raymar was saying like, "Hey, maybe I'm going to be down there on the 24th," I was like, "Oh man, I'll ride on 22." So I'm gonna be there. Of course, I'm gonna be there.
that
Florencia, save
that's
me one spot.
fantastic.
Yeah, it's
That
gonna be.
yeah, that is really wonderful. And I'm so like one of my goals for the year was to have like I'd love to have a Webflow conference in Spanish, and so this is kind of like the warming up to that.
Hmm.
Um,
The
and
MVP.
Yeah, it's the MVP for sure. So, and
Hmm.
we had a really good watch party in BA as well as around the world.
Yeah, I
So,
was in
yeah.
Rome also. Yeah,
Oh,
with Nicola and
that's right. Yeah, you were taking all the great pictures of your EA socks around.
exactly the
Um,
EA sucks
yeah,
too.
that's awesome. Well, real quick, just for anyone that hasn't met you before, what do you do?
I'm a Webflow developer, and right now freelance. I took designed especially for small startups. But yeah, I
Mhm.
have like this really deep passion about design. I think I'm first a designer, then I learned how to do Webflow. But yeah, I try to add value to people through that. And well, and I also ran very recently an educator.
Yep.
Maybe I could share a little bit of my knowledge and see who I can help.
Yeah, and I've seen the same thing. So, obviously we're started as an Atlanta-based company. COVID hits. One of the things that we make the call on is going remote. So we had a beautiful office, got rid of our office, and decided to go very remote. And I thought, I'd seen other companies that, and again, like Webflow is a very global product. Like there's so many people around the world that are working in it. And I knew that like, it's not just that I was like, oh, well, here's a great chance to go remote or whatever. It's like trying to find the best people in the world to work with, and not necessarily being limited by geography. And then also being like, competing globally for work, which is something that pre-pandemic, I'd never done. Like I would just always been kind of like an Atlanta-based group doing Atlanta-based work, and it's sort of like there's a small pool, and everyone's competing for like the same corporate jobs and things like that. Um, but yeah, and then as I was looking around, I think it came very clear very quickly, um, you know, what it must be like to work in a second language and what it must be like to even learn how to work in a second language, right? So it's like for me, like I study, I've struggled to learn Spanish, and I couldn't imagine trying to learn all of this stuff. Like Buffalo University has all these great tutorials and things along those lines, but they're all in English. And so I think that what you've been doing and like what we've started to do and kind of trying to spark this a bit is being able to create more content in Spanish, but in just other languages, like how to start to expand this out so that it can be more inclusive of different communities. And I'm curious, like, what was it like getting started? Obviously, like, your English is much better than my Spanish, even though I'm, 388 days in on my Duolingo. How was it learning all
Nice,
of this?
congratulations.
Thanks. very still like
uh,
like I'm still very very early. Like I can say like I want to eat an apple and I'd like some more milk, please. So
I was thinking about this very recently, and learning Webflow is exactly like learning a new language.
mhm,
So you're not just learning like the syntax of HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. You need to learn that. You need to
mhm,
understand that. You may not be writing the code,
mhm,
but I feel that it's the same jump as when computers used to be back in the 70s, like all command
mhm,
based, and then they invented like the graphical
mhm.
user interface,
Yep.
and then people started like tweaking. They lose the
Yep.
fear, of breaking things. But I think that with Webflow is the same thing. It's like people can get to
Mhm,
learn Webflow. They won't have this barrier
mhm,
of fear that okay, I don't understand, I don't, because it's kind of similar to other
mhm,
design tools. So
mhm.
similar, but yeah, you have, but it has its complexity. So learning Webflow, I already talked a little bit of English when I learned it, so it
Okay.
was not that hard. I think um, what was hard was to wrap my head around all the styles panel
Mm,
and how the CSS translated to that,
mm,
so I could take advantage of that. But even then, it's just like learning a new language, man.
mm.
I think I was not entirely uh, comfortable inside the tool up until 1 year, a year and a half, using it for client
Mm.
projects. I
Wow.
developed some of my best work. I have clients from 5 years ago that I'm still working right now to this day,
Yeah.
that I was just learning Webflow,
Yeah.
and I built something for them. It worked. They loved it. They still have their websites,
Yeah.
but I was not comfortable.
Sure.
Right now. Well, right now, yes, I think I could be, but it's just a matter of practice. Just like with Spanish
Yep.
and Duolingo, it's like you
Yep.
have to every
Every
day
day.
go and
Yeah.
go and
Yep.
develop the habit. And
Mm,
I think that's the most difficult thing,
yep.
Mason. The developing the habit, and of learning, constant and consistent learning, to actually master that thing.
Hmm.
It's I, and I think that's the part that's difficult, because all the other parts are just logic, just like language. It's just a tool.
um, while I've got some time, there was a tweet that you made a few weeks ago, and you're wanting to do like more, courses and work in Spanish. It's funny, like half of my Twitter now is in Spanish, and so I just wish I could get Duolingo points with that. But and then I see a lot of people that I know that are tweeting in both languages, where I just know what that's like, kind of the cognitive load going back and forth. So you put together a course last week.
Yeah.
Take me through that. How was it? I just love to hear about what that day was like.
Okay. It was exciting.
Mm,
I that's the right word, but I actually forgot like to get everyone introduced. It was like, okay, let's jump into Webflow, HTML and CSS. But there's a quote, I don't remember who said it first, but it says like, when one teaches to learn.
exactly.
And
Yep.
I that was I felt that
Mm,
firsthand with this course, because I was teaching these 17 students, like that. Some of them never touched like design software in their life, or maybe never wrote a single line of code, but they were really passionate about, okay, how do I do this, how do I trying to learn and wrap their head around a lot of stuff. It was uh, it was 14 hours straight in 2 days,
oh,
just
wow.
stacking. And I confirmed that I could talk about Webflow for hours and days, and and teaching everything. The only thing I had to do was like structure the thing. But I learned that is actually, I think Webflow is not like the more complicated part. The most complicated part is to learn how HTML and CSS work together, and that's
Yep.
something. Also the dynamics in the group. Like there were guys that were students of CS, computer science, and they were just like this, man. They were going through all the exercise I made, and
Yep.
just like Flash. And I was like, I don't even, they not even, it was my first time teaching, like a workshop. And they were like doing it just right away, didn't ask any questions. I also had two or three students that were around their 50s,
Okay.
almost 60, trying also to learn Webflow, and it was totally different experience. Like, okay, trying to, but from them and their questions is where I got like the most uh, resources on how to teach more efficiently Webflow, and especially this HTML and CSS part. Then once they get that, the translation part is easy. I feel
Yeah.
once you tell them, and that was not my case in my experience. It was all translation. It was, but they're learning it natively, so that was
Oh,
interesting. It was because they're not seeing the code, but they're
yeah.
learning how to structure it and how it
Yep.
interacts with each other. It's
Mm.
interesting because you're teaching them how to code, but they don't
Mhm.
know they're learning to
Exactly.
code. Yeah, you know.
Well, and I think there's a lot of programming basics that you start to learn eventually by working
Yeah.
in, like things like abstraction or things like, having elements that can be reused,
Hmm.
streamlining workflows, like all of that sort of stuff. So
Exactly.
yeah, it's like and I think for us, that's really where it's like you start building up and then you're building kind of like brochure sites, and then those brochure sites need like a little bit more, and then you're just like straight up programming, and it's like what language, so it's like, oh, is this
Hmm.
a visual language, is this like a written language, is it declarative, is it descriptive, things along those lines. What within the group that you were teaching, what was their reaction, what after the 2 days, it was 2 days, is that right?
It was 2 days. Yes.
Okay. What was their reaction after the 2 days? What did they want to do next?
Projects. They all had like
Yeah.
their little projects. Yeah,
Hmm.
we created a small WhatsApp group. I wanted to create a Slack, but I felt that it may be too technical for them. Yeah,
Hmm.
let's just keep it on WhatsApp.
Yep.
They were
Everything's in,
just
and for
uh,
everyone in the U.S. that doesn't know, like everything's in WhatsApp in Latin America. Like,
yeah, yeah, exactly. Groups for everything, like WhatsApp groups. So we
yep.
created this group, and then just the next very day, they were just all writing like, "Hey, Sergio, I want to do this. So what do you recommend?" I was always like sending them to the Webflow University and telling
Mm-hmm.
them, "Okay, you could do this this certain way." But they all had like their little projects that they wanted to start developing. So, but they were really excited. They felt like, okay, yes, we know that there's a lot more to learn,
Mm-hmm.
but I try to to show them everything, the 360 part of the tool.
Yeah,
It's a lot, it's a
that's a
lot,
whole lot.
but especially if we're going in just 2 days. But I felt, and they told me that they were really grateful,
Mm.
about just having experience and not being in fear of breaking things. It's just like,
Yep.
okay, I'm just going to go hack the stuff, and they know they have the support of the
Mhm.
community also. And yeah, probably you're going to start seeing them on your Discord also.
Oh,
I
yeah,
showed them
awesome.
I showed them your Webflow Cafe and told them about
Yeah.
the community.
Yep.
And I
Yeah.
think it's a really big factor on just keeping on that path of learning.
Yep. Yeah, I saw pictures of, obviously, like, you're very gracious in terms of like mentioning EA, and I was happy to be a part of it. but I saw the pictures of Florencia and Felix, and yeah. What do you know? As they're learning, what's their reaction to learning in Spanish versus learning, in English on like just Webflow University?
I think it was not that hard for them to get, for example, on the Webflow University thing
Mm,
on YouTube, because because of technology, the current technology right now, you can live translate
mm,
on YouTube, so
okay.
you can get some real-time subtitles, and then from those subtitles you can translate them to Spanish.
Mm,
So I saw a bunch of kids just using that, and maybe setting the speed to
mhm.
0.75% of speed,
Yeah.
so things go slow. But yeah, I feel that there's of course all documentation and all stuff is in English,
Yep.
but we have tools that can
Mhm.
help us a little bit to overcome the translation barrier.
Mm. Well,
So
do you think that like should just documentation be in English, or like what's what about kind of like having Spanish language native content? How important is that?
I think it would, if we had a Spanish specific or language
Mhm,
specific content, it will open even more the
mhm,
you know the field, because that's something that I feel that Webflow is,
mhm.
yes, a tool, but it's a lot of visual, but a lot of the
Mhm.
commands are in English. Easily, it could be
Yep.
translated to Spanish. And if people had like the tool in Spanish and also the content in Spanish,
Mhm,
they would even have less fear of just
mhm,
getting, uh, taking the leap, and just starting to use the platform. Because here in Latin America again, and in general in the Spanish speaking world, is as there's so many people. I'm talking more than 600 million something. So it's
wow.
it's its own ecosystem,
Yeah.
so
Yep.
people don't feel the need to go outside that ecosystem of knowledge, of content,
Mhm,
because everything is in Spanish. So when
mhm,
a lot of people really don't try to learn, or try to learn, but don't get English that much. So there's definitely a language barrier. So I
mhm,
don't know if I didn't teach this workshop in Spanish, they would ever pick this tool, because
mhm.
it's just not in their native language.
Yep.
Uh, you know, uh, One good thing about, and you may have noticed this learning Spanish, is that there are a lot of similar words
Sure.
between English. So I was telling them, I don't know, absolute position, posición absoluta. It's the same
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
fixed position, posición fija. It's
Yep.
there were things that they were able to pick really easy.
I would imagine it's really about comfort, because
Mm-hmm.
for some people, as you mentioned, like it's a learning Webflow is like a second language in and of itself, whether or not it's in a
Mm-hmm.
second language, and then you add that actual second language onto it, and then it's a multiplier of the hurdles that you have to get over. And I would imagine that while Webflow University is, you can hack it around and get the subtitles and things along those lines. I would imagine like the workshop that you put together was the spark that got them to see the bigger idea to be able to come over that multiplier of the current barriers. Um, so yeah, I think it's how to be able to create, I think for me even, like I didn't believe in Webflow when I first saw it, because I just thought, I was like, oh, it's too good to be true. And like I was jaded, I'm very jaded by marketing language, especially around tools. And I think it's like how to trust in a tool. And it wasn't until I heard, Sergi talk about their mission, that I was like, oh, I like them as people. So do you
Hmm.
think that, how much of this was, people seeing just another tool, and then how much of it is like people understanding that, like, you as a representative of this larger community, and the opportunity that that community represents? What do you see as that sort of dynamic?
I think for their main goal and their main thing was always to learn how to create a website, right? Is the tool.
Mhm. Yep.
So, and of course, I told them a lot about the tool, but I also told them a lot about the community, a
Hmm.
lot about the opportunities, the people that
Yep.
are out there, and of course, main flag here in Spanish, Webflow Cafe. But I was
Yeah.
telling them, of course, about Flux's community,
Yep.
about how supportive
Hmm.
they are and how beautiful it is, how warm it is. But I feel that you need to get to experience the community to
Hmm.
actually understand how meaningful it is. But the resources are there,
Yeah.
but mainly they were excited about the tool and about the capabilities that they will unlock in each of their cases. I saw
Mm-hmm.
three specific cases for. I was asking them like, why,
Mm-hmm.
why, why, why did you get here? And they were saying a couple of students were the CS
Mm-hmm.
students, so they just wanted to see another alternative to to code the front end of the websites. And I told
Yep.
them about DevLink, for example, that is going
Mm.
to the new feature. But others were designers, graphic designers that wanted to expand their
Mm.
their toolkit and their
Yep.
skills, because right now everything goes to the internet,
Mm.
to the web. And the other were entrepreneurs, the small entrepreneurs that wanted
Mm.
to create their own websites. Don't have to hire someone that may or may not do a good work, and have control. And that's the thing. That's another thing, beautiful thing about the tool. It's all about the control that you can have
Yep.
once you're learning deeply. So yeah, that was about it for them.
In terms of putting this event together, obviously there's investment that has to happen, reserving rooms, you got a photographer, like all of this stuff. Um, did you apply for a community grant through Webflow, or did you just decide you were going to bootstrap this?
I knew that I was going to go to Argentina like tomorrow, and
Yeah.
uh, this I had this friend, Abrama, the director of
Mhm.
this European Design Academy, and
Mhm.
he told me from since a long time ago, hey Sergio, you should do a workshop. You know,
Yeah.
I was like, yeah, I should, but I don't have time. I'm too busy doing all my stuff. But then I was like, okay, why don't we just do it? Just let's run. Let me get the materials. Let me run some
Yeah.
ads, and yeah, let's see. Then I published it into Twitter, and then you
Mhm.
wrote to me, and it was like, "Hey,
Mhm.
I want to help." So,
Sure.
yeah, and that totally helped us a lot. By the way, thank you again for
Yeah. No, no, no.
sponsoring the 17 students. It was great, man.
Yeah, no,
Uh,
I guess what I'm looking at is just, so like I know that program's just getting started. Is that a program that you looked at, or was it just like you were so focused on just building that you didn't even think about, you were just like kind of, damn the torpedoes, I'm just going to make this happen type of thing? Because you were doing it with or without a sponsor.
yeah, this all came because actually Webflow reached out to me a couple of months ago, well, 2 or 3 months ago.
Okay.
They wanted help with the enterprise. With the enterprise
Yeah.
clients, they make this onboarding on
Mm-hmm.
Webflow and teaching
Yep.
them how to use the whole
Yep.
platform and the whole stuff. So
Yeah.
yeah, they reach out and it's like, hey, can you help us with this client? we know you already
Mhm.
work with a enterprise client in Spanish,
Yep.
so
Yep.
don't you want to help us with this? And I was like, yeah, sure, why not?
Mm,
So I got with this client, and we started doing a 4 week
mm,
workshop on all the things. So I saw, okay, so this is how it's to teach Webflow. So I
mm.
thought like, hey, why don't we just keep teaching in
Yeah.
Webflow? Even with this client, I'm still giving them like
Mm,
private classes.
yeah. Oh
but
yeah.
but right now it's like, but the thing that was that this client, they didn't speak English, again, the
Mm,
language barrier.
yep.
So yeah, let's go and keep teaching. Of course, it was not exactly the same content because you need to teach
Yeah.
differently, but yeah, that was the education bug, I think.
Mm,
That came from there. I said like, yeah, I'm gonna do it. I'm just gonna do it. I'm just going to you. Let's you. I tell my friend Abrama, you give me the classroom,
yeah.
and I'll get a photographer friend of mine,
Yeah.
and I'll make the slides, and let's run
Mhm,
some ads on Facebook, and
mhm,
let's see who shows up.
mm.
And wow, 17 students was not bad.
So what do you think Webflow as a company can do? Like if you were to talk to them directly, like what can they do to help support this community?
Definitely. Again, resources in Spanish
Hmm.
would be great because one of the things when you're learning how to uh, code anything or work with code, you need to Google a lot of stuff. Just try
Yeah.
to figure out things. How do I make this button larger? So you go
Hmm.
and search for it. But if
Hmm.
everything is in English, especially with a new tool
Hmm.
as Webflow, so we people need documentation. People
Yep.
need, and of course, awareness. But I think it's starting to grow. I think
Hmm.
I've received a lot of inquiries about people in Spanish, but I think, yeah, we need more people, man, that helps us in this
Yeah.
Spanish speaking world.
Yeah. Well, obviously, like, we're going to keep working together and we've got, I mean, just EA in general has a lot of plans for what we want to help to build. And, just looking to people like you to help lead the way and then how we can be, a support within that. So yeah, I would say like whatever the next one is, and it's like next week's going to be awesome with Raymar and
Yeah,
the state of
looking
flow or
forward to it.
Estados de flow. Is
Estado del
that it?
flow.
Yeah.
Estado del flow.
So should be a lot of fun. And he's working on his, he does pretty well with his Spanish. He was,
Yeah, it does.
I heard him last week when I had a chance to talk with him. And yeah, he was just like rattling it off, and he was like, "Oh, but I feel so rusty." And I was like, "Man," I was like, "Now you know like how everyone else feels trying to work in English, as a second
Yeah,
language." Uh,
yeah,
so
totally.
if nothing else, just
totally.
having that kind of like shared understanding.
Yeah, but I've heard him in one of sometime talking in Twitter.
Oh yeah,
But yeah, no, he has a really good Spanish.
he's
So
good.
yeah,
Yeah, it should be
yeah,
great.
it
So
will be great.
we'll have to talk more like afterwards on sort of like what his recap and maybe get you and Fluencia and a couple people to
Would love to.
have sort of a regroup on just like what the day is like and all that sort of stuff.
Would love to.
Yeah. So cool. Well, good to catch up with you. And yeah, I know you've got a video that you've made, and I don't know if that's up on YouTube yet. I'll cut this up into some chunks, and I'll throw some pictures up that you'd send, and I'll send them over to you before I send anything out. And but
Great.
yeah,
But
I'm
I'll
also going to be advocating. We've submitted for like community grant. I want to advocate for the community grant for this community. What like I'm not trying to get it. I would love to have like all of Webflow University translated into Spanish and like the documentation and then how to go and create a template for this. So, and I know that's going to probably be happening at some point. I imagine that team has their hands full. I know they do. I mean, they just finished Webflow conference and things like that. So, um, yeah, but good to hang out. You doing anything for lunch? You doing? I guess it's a little later for you. What's it? Is it 2 o'clock?
One. No, it's 1 o'clock right now.
Okay,
So
yeah. I guess
yeah,
it's
no, it's
Argentina
good.
that's two
Yeah,
hours.
it's Argentina. It's 2 hours. Yeah, later. So yeah, yeah, I'm gonna grab some lunch right now.
Cool. Awesome. Well, good to see you. I'm gonna stop recording.